Welcome to the Manly Thigh Podcast. I don't carry pants in the summer. I looked. That's all I got, my bro. Hey y'all, welcome to the Flash Quotes Podcast. #1 podcast online for mobile event entrepreneurs. We're here in, what do we call this? The Flash Cave. The basement graciously offered by Zachary here and set up with all the amazing purple lights, indigo lights to give us the proper startup vibe as we hack away.
Yep. Snacks, drinks behind the camera here. Ping pong table over there. It's true startup vibe.
Except for sharing 2 mics, I'm going to keep grabbing from Justin. But open invitation if any Flash Quotes podcast enthusiasts are good at ping pong. You can come play us.
So thanks for hanging out. Today we're going to do something new where we have enough listeners and people engaging, which we're super grateful for, to have our first listener mail episode. And we sent out the call on the school community and to some folks online to get some questions. So we just wanted to run through some of those today and hopefully give you some satisfactory answers. And if not, you can let us know.
One thing I want to jump in and say, Daniel, can't believe he forgot to introduce Milo here. If you're watching on the video, we've got Zach's very good boy, Milo. What, 9 years old?
He's 11 years old.
11 years old.
But he is my coworker.
So incredibly small, but as my kids can attest, very interested in hurting them and other children.
Herding with a D.
Hurting. Yeah, not hurting. Sorry, Milo. Hurting. It's in his DNA. What can you say? Cool. Well, let's jump in. You guys ready to rock? You feeling good? All right. First question we have is from Jake at Cafe Cotier. He asked about advice for transitioning from side hustle while working another full-time job to catering being the main source of income. How do you juggle that while you have both of them running at the same time? How do you ramp up the number of events and grow the catering? How do you know when the right time is to jump ship and really go put all your chips on the table and go all in for catering?
That's a good question. Thank you, Jake, for that one. I think this is relatable to a lot of people as they start their coffee catering or mobile events businesses. There's a couple of thoughts that initially come to my mind for this. And when you're just a part-time caterer to start, you're in a little bit of a catch-22, especially if you have a full-time Monday to Friday job. The first thing is you can really only work weekends, of course, which are going to be private events, going to be weddings. That right there can be a little more limiting. You're going to be working with higher maintenance clients, most likely, more budgeted, limited clients, most likely. Whereas the bigger money corporate events usually are happening on weekdays in so many cases. So it's almost slowing you down and you're trapped in that limbo. I guess my answer to that a little bit more is calculate your life expenses. Like know what's your mortgage, what's your groceries, what's your, car payment, all of that stuff. And what's the minimum amount that you need coming in monthly to be able to sustain yourself. And then if you have a couple months in a row that can hit that, then you may be ready. And a lot of times too, with that huge amount of extra time that you're now going to have when you quit your full-time job, all that time and energy that's being spent right now towards someone else's vision for your life, now you can put it towards this business. And that alone will likely propel you forward. If you're any good at all with your marketing, your promotion, if you're in a city of any moderate size with a few 100,000 people, it feels like you really could start to accelerate just with all that extra time and energy you have. Keep in mind, there is the seasonal cycles, the slower time for your industry. For coffee, it's usually summer. If you're in ice cream, of course, winter will be your slower period, where just be aware that during the busy periods, you'll want to save up a little bit of a nest egg to get you through those slower periods. So that's some of my initial thoughts there.
One other thing I would add from my experience leaving a regular W-2 job to kind of go all in on a startup is it can be nice to have a second income that is not the W-2 and not the startup thing, right? Just to buffer that. So if you're able to figure out some other side hustle that's that's reliable or can be scaled up or down. Like in my case, it was kind of consulting. So just some hourly consulting gigs, freelance gigs to just kind of buffer that or offset the slow months or kind of insulate the ramp up, so that I wasn't totally dependent on the new thing, but also had more flexibility than I would with a W-2 job. That could be another angle to kind of simplify the transition, to doing that.
And I have heard of maybe not the business owner necessarily, but it's not a bad idea. I have heard of some coffee cart business owners having their baristas, or maybe just their baristas, naturally defaulting to working like DoorDash or gig work or something like that. And so that is an option for you too. Most likely, if you're in a moderately sized city, if you were really feeling a pinch, have that gig work in your back pocket where you could go out and make a couple $100 if you needed to.
Yeah, and certainly you can and should pay attention to your lead flows, right? I mean, if you're getting a lot of leads, they're coming in, you're having to say, no, we're not available, or if you're blocking a lot of dates because you're getting a lot of action, then that's very strong signal. Do the math. What's your average order value? How much you're going to make per event? What do you need to live? I think in this industry, if you've got the lead flow, you should bet on yourself earlier than you probably feel comfortable doing. I mean, it is a bit of it's a risk, right? To leave the comfort of a standard job. Like, paychecks are addicting, and the bigger the paycheck is, the more addicting it is.
Yeah.
Taking that leap is scary, but it's also invigorating to go for it. And a lot of things in life, there's never like the right time. The right time is usually when it's still scary.
And it also depends on where you're positioned within your market already. Where do you show up in search results? Do you already have reviews? Are you already showing up on the top 3 of the Google Map Pack? Are you ranking pretty high on the first page? And again, I'm a broken record. Is your city of moderate size, 400,000 or 500,000 or more? If you've got all those things in a row, it feels like it's only a matter of time before, and so you're probably safe to jump sooner. If you have a website that's not ranking, no Google reviews, that sort of thing, then maybe hold off, because those usually are some of the most potent indicators that you're poised to capture a good chunk of leads and bookings that may come through for your area.
Yeah, that's a really good point, that there's a lot of groundwork that can be laid in the evenings. Like, you can work a full-time job and build your profile online and build your website and optimize your SEO and think about ordering the right equipment. And like, there's a lot of legwork you can do in advance. So it kind of goes both ways. Like, if you're not willing to hustle now to get that stuff set, then you got to look inward and say, okay, do I have the fire in the belly to go for it? But if that's in line.
Just one final thought on that. I mean, you make a great point. In the event service business, everything you need to do except the actual service can be done on nights and weekends, or like outside of a full-time job. Right?
Yeah.
You can build your online presence, you can run ads, you can develop your social media, you can build your order equipment and learn about the equipment that you need and buy it and set up your cart and prep for events, and all that stuff can be done in the margins of a full-time business until, maybe that's what Jake's doing. But it's really just the service days that are the thing that can't be done on a flexible timeline. But otherwise, try and get as much work done on the business outside of normal, like 9 to 5 hours as you can, and you'll get pretty far.
One alternative to kind of make that transition a little smoother is to potentially get your second barista going sooner than you maybe otherwise would. Now, I know it means you're going to be capturing less of the event revenue for yourself, but it means that you could maintain, if you were a little more risk averse and you didn't want to give up that full-time job, but you want to accept weekday bookings, then start bringing in that second barista who does have availability on weekdays. Have them shadow you for whatever it is, 3 to 10 events that happen on the weekend. Get them built up. And then you can start accepting those weekly bookings, get that weekly or like weekday event revenue. And then once you're comfortable there, jump into it. So there's a lot of creative and interesting ways you could make that transition smooth and intelligent. Of course, a lot of people are like, husband and wife, co-founders of an event business, especially in coffee. And so that inherently, there's a lot of flexibility there. So we see that. And so whether that's one of you going full-time first while the other one kind of doesn't, there's a lot of different creative solutions, and it really depends on the individual circumstances of your life and your psychology and what you're comfortable with and what excites you. And yeah, there's plenty of creative ways to go full time while not shooting yourself in the foot financially.
Yes. Cool. Well, hopefully that was helpful, Jake. That actually kind of dovetails nicely with the next question that we have from Noah at Cherry Bomb about how much you should pay your event staff. So I really like that, Justin. Like maybe you could actually think of this as your side hustle that you're growing, leveraging employees, leveraging 1099 contractors, whatnot. And so to the extent somebody might want to do that, or they're already well established and they're especially going to a new market, or just trying to figure out how much should I pay the folks that are working my events? Is it a straight hourly rate? Is there bonuses that have proved effective in your experience on ways to incentivize people in the right ways? What have you seen there? How do you think about things? Especially, recently you guys went to a new market. How do you think about that differently? Surely geographically that stuff plays a role too.
Yeah, absolutely. The short answer there for all industries, again, whether you're photo booth, bartender, whatever, the answer for me is above market for your city. I always want to pay my baristas above market for Denver, for my Denver team, above market for San Francisco, for my San Francisco team, and those numbers, to your point, Daniel, are different. The reason I want to pay above market is, one, because it's harder work. It's physically demanding work. It's higher stakes, right? If a barista doesn't show up for a cafe shift, it's a big deal. Like 2 people get a delayed drink or miss their latte. And in this case, it could be huge business reputation, thousands of dollars or tens of thousands if you lost some big corporate client that was maybe poised to be a repeat client and there was some irreparable damage there. So above market for your city, because you need that reliability, it's more physically demanding and requires a higher skill set. So,
and when you say market, you're saying if this business has an analog that's a brick and mortar, so a barista, a bartender, somebody working at like a Paletas brick and mortar,
yeah,
you're going to be thinking about paying a lot more, or at least above that,
yeah,
for the folks that are actually facilitating an event.
Yes, and part of that is another reason why you must pay above market, in my opinion, is because of the fluctuating demand and that this is inconsistent work. And so, it's it can be feast or famine. So people need to feel motivated. Like, okay, I know I'm not getting 40 hours a week and this is inconsistent, but I can get like, whatever, $250 to $400 in a day. That's just kind of extra walking around spending money. Like, that's worth my time, even though I know it's inconsistent. So that's another important reason, I think, to pay above market. I really do think aligning those incentives properly is really, really key. So we have a base pay that that I would say is already above market, but then we do offer bonuses to those baristas for good performance, for completion of the event, full cleaning, restocking, starting service on time. We offer a bonus after every 5 events. And that kind of clustered bonus helps ensure that people want to work multiple events and get that bonus at the end of the 5, and not just like randomly pop in because their birthday's coming up and they want a couple $100 and actually don't really want to work any other events aside from that. That's been good for us too. We don't really take away that bonus very often at all, but it's also a powerful motivator if you do have baristas who start showing some performance issues, let's say.
Nice. And I think another thing that can help a lot with the compensation is also the gratuity piece that people get.
Yes.
And we've seen with how we approach that in Flash Quotes, people seeing really meaningful increases in their average gratuity for bookings to the order of, multiple times. And the impact of that increased gratuity and being able to share all of it or a portion of it with the event staff is really, really helpful and can meaningfully help you differentiate how much you can pay.
Yeah, we've seen people, actually, Zach, do you want to talk about the gratuity increases we see people get on Flash Quotes when they switch from another software that doesn't have, and they don't do like auto gratuities or service fees?
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember, Justin. So to use Goodhart as an example, what you present three options, right? Is it like 15, 20, 25, or what is the split there?
I think I present 4, 10, 15, 20, 25. Yeah.
Yeah, I think what we've tended to see is people tend to get a blended average of maybe like 18% or something like that. It depends a little bit on what options you provide people. Um, whatever options you provide for gratuity in your Flashcodes booking form, there seems to be almost an even distribution across the choices, which is a little bit surprising. I think a lot of people think people will just pick the lowest one or whatever, or maybe the middle one, but you tend to get a lot of generous tippers. It seems to be based on the data. We've been actually digging into this a little bit, and I think we may add to the reporting section soon, like a visualization where you can see what options are people picking and what is your blended average tip. But if you're not using Flashcodes and your blended average tip is below 18%, consider using our gratuity question to bump that up, because that will help you, like we're saying, get better talent and pay your people really well.
Yeah, and we realized early on, we didn't expect this or necessarily plan it this way, but for people who don't have an automatic service fee, and especially people who are using Square, which is, I'd say, the most common invoicing platform for other event businesses before they switch to Flashquotes, we often see their gratuity for their staff jump like 2 to 3x. Of course, your mileage may vary, and it can depend on who your clients are, and among other things. But yeah, we see people almost right away when they switch to Flashquotes get 2 to 3x more gratuity. That means that that's another way that you can pay your baristas above market, meaning you can retain them. They'll stay with you. They'll likely stay with you through fluctuating seasonal demand. And we think the dynamic that's happening is that it may be, especially for corporate events, we think that the effect is something like someone is booking the event. It's the nice, friendly office assistant, and they're going through and completing the booking, and they're generous and they want a tip, and it's not their money, and so they may select a gratuity. They may select a high gratuity. Then that gratuity shows up as a line item on the invoice, and so the accountant, who would likely not tip you, they just pay the invoice. That's their job. They just pay the invoice, whatever's on there they pay, but they would not tip you. And so we think that kind of two-part dynamic is leading to a lot more gratuity for events-based businesses, which is really powerful.
So like the takeaway there, just for anyone who's not doing this already, is, to me, what we don't know exactly what the root cause is there, but you should definitely be capturing gratuity at the point of booking, not at the point of invoice due. If you wait until the very end and you send them their invoice and then ask them like, "Hey, you want to pay? You're about to pay us X $1,000. Want to tack on some more?" Your tips are going to plummet. But if you capture it at the beginning, it's going to be a lot higher.
Yep.
Nice.
One other quick point there. Another reason why you can afford to pay above market is because if you're doing contracted catering, you know all of your numbers before you ever go service that event, or very close to all your numbers, right? You know the estimated guest count, so you can, backwards calculate your cost of goods within a very tight margin. Of course, with Flashquotes, when you have a booking come through, we instantly generate the entire shift duration from shift start to shift end. So okay, this is okay with 2 hours service, but with drive time and setup and everything, this is an 8-hour event. This is going to be $200 in labor. You know all those numbers in contracted catering, which means that you can pay above market to your staff, pass that on to your client if you want, and get the absolute best people in your city.
Have you? Maybe it's a dumb question, but the difference between like an average barista and a really exceptional one, do you feel like you're getting really good talent with paying above market, and that is a meaningful difference in the business? I mean, I guess obviously the answer is yes, but maybe you can, otherwise you wouldn't be doing it. But it seems it's worthwhile for people to help differentiate and attract the better talent this way.
I think so. I would say how much above market is up to you. But Yeah, I would say try it and see. Like if you're having a hard time staffing all of your events, or if you're someone who says the phrase no one wants to work anymore or it's hard to find good people, there's a saying, and it's, but how does the saying go exactly? I think it's, if you want a circus, pay peanuts. And so if you're someone who says those phrases, you may not be paying enough, or this is a whole nother podcast episode. Your training and onboarding and or culture, company culture might not be where it needs to be.
Yeah, I mean, it's fairly potent that there's a single person potentially that's representing your brand and your business to this outside client, right? And the risks there, or the benefits of them doing a really exceptional job for repeat business and word of mouth, is huge. So it's not really something you want to play around with. Cool. All right, let's jump to the next one. This is from our friend Noah. The Noah's coming out strong in this one, from Reunion Coffee. Thank you, guys. When should I hire a second in command? How do I know when I'm ready and I can afford them? I guess we have to take a little bit of liberty on what second in command means here, but maybe you can tell us kind of how you think about your seconds in command, or the people that are like really executing for your business, and when you first started thinking about bringing somebody on to do that at Goodhart Coffee.
Yeah, second in command to me means someone who can help support the business and do what isn't your strength. So if you're good at sales, it's someone who could potentially help on the operations side, or if you're good at operations, it's someone who could potentially help on the sales side. Yeah, this is a very tough question, also a very personal question, just like the one going from side hustle part-time to full-time. There's a lot of nuance, a lot of individual circumstance that is happening here. Definitely have some thoughts on it. I don't know, Zach, do you have anything you want to jump in on before I go?
Yeah. Based on my experiences, for these small businesses, like, most event caterers or service businesses in this category would be considered a small business. And usually you may have better luck. This is just anecdotal, right? But you may have better luck promoting from within than going and hiring a lieutenant like from outside. Again, if you come across the right person, or someone works for an analogous company that you really respect, and they have already had the role and worked in a similar, you just want to import their knowledge and their expertise, that can work great. But you may find better luck, instead of saying I need to go hire a second in command, saying who in my team should I be investing in more that may have the potential to become that someday? Like hiring, promote from within and grow, give your people opportunity to, and those who are doing excellent work and really invested and excited about the business, continue to give them more, continue to cultivate them. If you're not doing one-on-ones with those people, to understand like what motivates them, what are their career goals, you should be, so that you can understand, you may find, as you grow, you may find from within your ranks there's someone who has that potential. And then also from a compensation perspective, you can just work them up gradually to pay them well for what they, once they get there, basically, to take on more and more responsibility and give them a raise each time. But I think that's a higher hit rate than posting like, general manager positions on LinkedIn or Indeed and trying to bring someone in externally.
That's 100%. I fully agree with that. I think this is especially true if, as the business owner, you stay on the sales side and you're better at sales, because promoting like an event staff person to the operations role usually is very natural, because they've done a ton of events. They understand intuitively at this point how the operations go, and they may just need some slightly bigger, like bird's eye level view of how it goes. We've had tons of success doing that, and almost all of our operations people have come up first as baristas, and it's been an amazing fit. We have had a lot less luck transitioning event staff into like sales or event planning roles, because they're so different, and those skills can take a little longer. We have one person where we've successfully done that. Her name's Yasmin. She's been with me 4 or 5 years now. She's amazing, and she's, rose up all the way through the ranks from event barista to now like our senior event planner and salesperson, and she's amazing and she crushes with it. But she, I would say, is a bit of an exception. It's generally pretty tough to go from barista to salesperson and event planner, or event staff to sales. It can happen, and you may have someone who's exceptional, but it's probably not going to happen as naturally as it would with like the operations role. So yeah, I mean, these days at Goodhart, most of my operations people come from within. Most of my salespeople don't, because I've just found, especially as you get a little bigger, have better lead flow, you've got to teach sales skills, CRM skills, customer relationship management. That, like, a CRM software is critical as your lead flow and event volume increases. And so I found that's just very hard to teach to event staff, especially a lot of whom may never have worked any computer job or any white collar job in their life. And so they're like slow to navigate around on computer interfaces. Maybe, especially in today's generation, maybe they're incredible and you love them. They're charismatic and very social and really good with people. But if they're, maybe, no shade to Gen Z, I love Gen Z, but a lot of them like are mobile devices first. They're like phones and iPads, and like they maybe never even had a laptop or something, and so they're typing slow. They're slow to navigate with a mouse, or they only use their trackpad, and that to me is like a computer efficiency thing. I always have a mouse. I want a second screen, and so yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of going off in the weeds on that, but I've definitely prefer to get my salespeople from an experienced kind of customer service sales role, and that's worked better for us. So how do you know when you're ready? You kind of go through the same calculus as you did when you were going from like, hobbyist kind of side hustle to full time. But now the expenses are not just your personal expenses, they're that plus your business expenses. If you have leases, if you have vehicle car payments and insurance and all these other labor costs, now you're taking all that calculus and you're saying, okay, what amount do I need to make monthly to cover that, and do I have the extra to pay my living expenses and the extra to bring on this person?
Yeah, it's almost kind of, I want to expand on something that's kind of subtext of what you're saying, which is probably the step one. Maybe you've already done this, Noah, is to like draw your org chart or the departments of your business, right? Think about, okay, most event service businesses probably break down into like a sales and event planning org, like a service and customer experience org, and which is tightly coupled maybe to like an operations or back of house org. But some flavor of those three things is pretty common. Maybe it's only two in your mind for your business, or maybe it's more. But which one of those do you want to continue to own forever as the founder, or if any? And then who, if your goal is to delegate the other one or two, what are the stepping stones for people who are already working in those organizations to like take on more and more responsibility and to climb the ladder to become so that you can see them see their potential and kind of nurture it, so maybe you can make them like a lead and then a manager, and then eventually, someone may rise up and become like the director of such and such or chief of such and such.
Yeah, and I think what's so hard about this is that you can barely afford one of these people when you actually probably need two, because sales and event planning and operations, usually it's very rare that you'll find one person who can do both of those things, and those roles have inherent conflicts in them. Now, we had that when we were growing. I crammed all that into one role, and it worked. It can work as a transition role for like a year or two before you're either going to burn that person out or you outgrow that. So it's okay. It can be okay. It's very hard to find the person who can do, like you as the business owner, who can do sales and operations, event staffing, hiring. But what started to happen, especially in the busy season, you will get a good kick in the butt, is like sales is blowing up and growing in the busy season, and operations is growing in the busy season. So you have this person who's doing both roles. They're selling the event. Now they realize, oh, I've sold this event. Now I have to go hire for it, staff it, do all the logistics for it, and those things have inherent conflicts. So that now they can't sell in new events because they're trying to do all the operations and logistics, and then in the busy season, inherently both of those things grow, and so the workload is almost exponential, and you're not going to get many busy seasons out of someone in that role. Most likely, you can probably float that role in a transitionary period for a year or two before you have to split out sales and operations so that they can really focus on those specialties. And the result is, gosh, that split of splitting out sales and operations was such a relief and such a good decision for us to do. But I couldn't afford to do it for a long time because we didn't have the event volume. But man, things ran so much smoother when we did.
Nice. And I mean, another thing that you have to contend with bringing on like a number two or somebody who's going to take a really important role in your business is getting comfortable with them doing things differently and being okay with that, even if you might think like that's not the way I would do it or that's not the best way. It's kind of this age-old challenge for managers of anybody, right? Which is, okay, what is the thing that only I can do that I need to continue doing? What are the things that I can delegate and have somebody take on that are not going to be existential or super high risk to the business, and be okay with them taking a different approach, even if that approach seems odd to you or not as effective. Like, you have to figure out how to give people enough rope to shine, to explore, to not be stifled. I think that's a really critical thing you have to figure out when you're trying to determine, as Zach said, the area or vertical of the business where you're going to stay and you feel like you're going to add the most value versus bringing somebody else on. And then to the second part of Noah's question about when do I know I can afford it, there is one benefit of hiring from within, which is you already have the baseline, right? It's not a blind thing. I'm not putting some question out into the ether that I don't really know how much I should pay. I have a baseline of what somebody who is a real up-and-comer and star is doing, and I can give them a meaningful increase in pay while going into it with eyes wide open, so I can kind of conceptually budget it in my head before I make that leap. I think that helps a lot.
I would just add to that, like promoting from within is always more inexpensive from a compensation perspective than hiring from without, because the people that you're starting from a lower baseline. You can give them meaningful raises each time, but it takes a few years of meaningful raises to get to another level of someone who's already coming in at that level. And if someone's already coming in at that level, they're already making that much and they expect a bump to come, right? So if someone who's already doing this role somewhere else, they probably will, they're likely to expect a meaningful raise to shift jobs. And that's pretty common when you're in the job market. So typically an outside hire is going to be more expensive for the same role than an inside promotion.
Nice. Well, let's jump into, we have one more on the docket. We can maybe see if we have time for some bonus ones. This one is from our friend Nikki at Anecho. She asks, how do I maintain a healthy business partner relationship? So that's
it's a big one.
That's a
good one.
Yeah.
It's, in my mind, it's akin to asking, how do I maintain a good marriage? Which is like, great question. Daniel, do you want to kick this one off?
Yeah, I will. I mean, I agree. It's a very, very serious relationship. You've said this, and I definitely agree with it, that y'all are probably among the only or very few people with whom I'd feel comfortable taking on such a serious endeavor and going out with. To me, I think, and again, reflecting on marriage stuff that's worked for me as well, but one that really comes to my mind is really always operating with an internal locus of control, which is just a fancy way of saying I'm in control of what's going on, how I'm reacting to things and how I'm acting and engaging. And that's really what I can own, and not ascribing to malice or anger or frustration, that which can be ascribed to something much, much simpler and basic, right? If we have any, friction or tough points in our business relationship, to me, it's always, having the friendship foundation, you go back to, if you can work with somebody or people with whom you have a foundation of just like hey, I know this person cares about me. They want what's best for me. I for them. Then that is like a hugely helpful thing. And then it's just looking inward and saying, hey, how can I act in this situation? What am I doing? What can I do better? And to me, that's so much more effective than looking outward and saying, well, if only this, right? Whereas if your business partners and everybody you're working with can kind of have that internal reflective instinct first and foremost, I think that is immensely, immensely helpful in a business relationship.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, I think for me, just to extend the marriage analogy here, like, you probably shouldn't be in a business relationship or a partnership, business partnership, with anyone who you haven't known for years. My rationale there is, you need to know how they handle conflict. You need to have seen them in many different scenarios, personally, professionally, just like you would think through with a potential marriage partner or someone you were dating. It's probably unwise, even if you do feel there's great chemistry, it's probably unwise to do it after only knowing them a year, because you just haven't shared enough life with them and haven't seen them in enough breadth of experience and situations. And so there may be parts of them that come out that you only see multiple years in, and maybe those parts are like very concerning to you. But for sure, you need to know how someone handles conflict and hard situations before you should get in a business relationship with them. And I mean, I think to my point, or sorry, I think thinking about that, I mean, the default to me is no. Like, no, I don't want to get in a business relationship with anyone. Like Daniel said, these are probably the only two people in the world that I would get in a business relationship with. The answer to me, the default is always no. Like, try to figure out another way to do it. And also, just from a financial perspective, like, try to own as much of the business as you possibly can, because that's going to be way better for your financial, for your financial health moving in, as you grow older and as the business matures. If you can pull it off, do everything you possibly can to own as much of that business as possible. And I think a lot of people go to a business partnership out of fear, because they're scared and they want to feel like they're in it with somebody. But if you can be in it with your actual husband or wife, that's probably the safest bet, because I mean, yeah, like, you're already literally married to them. If you feel like you can work well with them, that's probably financially the safest bet. I just I don't I don't do business partnerships. It's my default, except with these guys. Figure out another way to get the financials to work. Build your skills, build your confidence, do it yourself. Pay someone, consult with someone, right? Like, I'll pay you thousands of dollars even to just come in and help me solve this one problem. But to give someone percentage points in your business and to be like permanently tied to them, and if you don't like know them deeply and trust them deeply, it's not likely going to end well. Just like there's a crazy divorce rate in the US, there's a crazy business like breakup, like business owner, a co-founder fallouts in the US. I mean, and probably around the world. So do not take it lightly. Try to avoid it if you can. And if you can't, which was the case in our scenarios, like, this business would have been impossible without me and Zach. We started initially just me and Zach. Like, it was impossible. I could not have done it without him. I don't think he could have done it without me. Completely impossible to do without both of us. Deep reservoir of friendship, relationship, and trust, and like incredible belief in their skill set. Like, we truly had complementary skill sets. And then when Daniel joined, it was the same thing. It's like, we will be way better off. We're not doing this because we need, more financial contribution. It's like the trajectory, in our case, adding this third co-founder, like, we believe down to our core that this will materially change the trajectory of Flash Quotes, and maybe not even just the speed at which we get to a certain destination, but to destinations we will get to at all. And that's why we then brought on Daniel, and yeah, I don't know. That's kind of my perspective, and clearly I feel, yeah, a bit like passionately about those views.
Yeah, that's awesome. Two came to mind from that. One, like, so a lot of what we've just been talking about is choosing a business partner, and it seems like the theme of what we're saying is there should be a foundation deeper than the business for the relationship, whether it's a marriage or a friendship or whatever. Like, that you should feel like there's this layer of trust, or the relationship is more important than the business partnership in some way, where you could like stop being business partners or shut down the business or whatever, and that wouldn't be the end of the relationship. It's like if the only thing tying you together is the business, then you don't have like that safety net of of trust and to build upon. But I think the wording of Nikki's question hit me a little different, which is like, what if you already have? I'll take a different angle, which is like, what if you have a business partner and you just want to either work to improve or preserve or maintain that relationship as best you can with someone you're already working with. To me, one of the best frameworks here is the book Radical Candor. I've referenced it before on the podcast. Maybe the most influential, like, just business interpersonal relationship book I've ever read. The premise of the book is very simple. It's right on the front of the book. There's like an XY axis, and so 4 quadrants of communication and trust with your coworkers, and it applies to anyone you work with, but especially, it's applicable here for a co-founder or a business partner. So the one axis is like, how candid can you be with them? Are you extremely candid or extremely like, passive aggressive, unable to speak your mind, have to withhold what you're saying, versus like super authentic, very transparent, can say anything to each other, can call each other out on your shit, etc. So there's like a candidness spectrum, and then there's a how much do you care about each other, or how much do they feel like you care about them spectrum. So like trust or interpersonal warmth, basically. So the idea is you want to be in the top right quadrant, which is, I care a shit ton about you, and I can also be crazy candid with you, right? And you should have that with each other. You should be able to call each other out, to disagree, to be honest, to be vulnerable, to be transparent. But if you don't also couple that with like deep personal caring about the person, or them feeling like you care, it just comes off as you're an asshole, right? You're just picking on me, you're being mean, like, God, you're always nagging, you never agree with me on anything. But if you trust and understand, like, they care about me, they want what's best for me, they want what's best for the business, then that opens up this door to have really, really raw, authentic communication. So those two things together are the best way, I think, to operate with. I strive for that in past jobs and stuff, with direct reports, with superiors, with peers. I think it's a great framework for all your employees, honestly, but it really applies it for the business partner situation.
Yeah, and I love that. I need to read that book, and then we can do a deep dive on it. But yeah, in the spirit of like maintaining healthy relationships with business partners, so much of there's this really powerful idea of separating yourself and your self-worth and your confidence in who you are from this thing that we're building, right? And so it's kind of like, that's what you're going to, like, the caring is like this foundation, like have that caring foundation, have those years together, the relationships, the trust. And then it can be really helpful to view your business and even your partnership as an agreement to go play in this sandbox. And it's not you, it's not who you are. Like, the other stuff is here and it's solid, and it's just like, let's go on an adventure, or let's go to battle. Let's just go crush, right? And that sort of, for me, has always tapped into this wellspring of excitement and enthusiasm, and been an openness for candid conversations and relationship, because it's just, hey, we're just trying to like build castles in the sandbox. Like, this is working, this isn't working, here's my opinion on this, I think that I disagree, I agree. but it's not emotional because you don't take it all personally, right? The worst thing you can do is to take disagreements here and like internalize them as like a personal attack, right? As soon as you start doing that in a business relationship, that should be a red flag to say, okay, like this is all out of whack. First, I obviously don't think this person cares about me enough to like receive this in a positive way. And secondly, I got to do some internal work because I'm taking this whole thing and saying like this is me, this is Daniel, and like this is a problem versus this is just a sandbox. This is just a freaking game. So, chill out, play the game with your business partners and be solid in and of yourself. And I think you can tap into something really beautiful.
Yeah. We're all gamers. We all grew up gaming together, and we're now fans of tabletop games. And I love that analogy for business of just like it's just a game. Like play the game and try and win the game, but like don't take it, don't hold it lightly. Don't take it too seriously. And it's almost like you're with your co-founders. Treat it like an adventure. Treat it like this is just one thing that we're doing together. It's like this is a long running game of Dungeons and Dragons or something, whatever. Or like we're just going to show up really frequently and do this thing together, and we're trying our best and we're trying to win. But like at the end of the day, it's just something that we're doing together. We're still people. We could still stop the game at any time. We could give up on it or whatever. But when you look at it through that lens, it helps you kind of keep it a little bit lighter.
Tips that I've had experiences with that I think not only would apply to business partners, but really apply to all of your staff and employees is there are some people who just come across really not all of them, but there's certain people who have forms of communication where they may be very good at and forms of communication they come across very poorly in. Maybe like some people are really amazing in person and on the phone, but for whatever reason, when you read their text messages, they just grate you and like irritate you, and they feel different or they feel mean. And so that can be something to be mindful of. Is like, do you have specific communication channels where you receive each other better? That can sometimes be helpful to be mindful of. Most people, the average person is probably pretty great across a written versus phone call versus in person, but there are some people who are very poor and very strong in different ones. So there have been people in my career where I'm like, I want to get on a call with you or I want to speak with you in person because for whatever reason I interpret your written words as like I'm not jiving with them. So that can be one thing to be mindful of. The other is, and this probably happens naturally, is just scheduled time to talk. Scheduled time to go over things. Early on, with my first second in command, initially we had just had tons of time where we were naturally engaging and communicating, and then I got busy and we just kind of like our communication dropped off and we didn't have any structure to keep a normal cadence in place. So then it would be 2 to 3 weeks and we hadn't like had a dedicated time to chat. We're just firefighting maybe, but not like really just strategizing, talking, maybe discussing relational elements. And so then before I knew it, like we had drifted far apart, and suddenly I woke up, we went and had coffee at this cafe, and the energy that they brought to that meeting, which was in person, shocked me. I did not realize how far our relationship had drifted because, as we got busy and stressed and whatever, we just didn't have that consistent communication and we drifted. And I woke up one day and realized like, whoa, like we are not in a good place. And it feels like it's coming out of left field. Obviously it's not. Obviously it's been like a slow directional drift, but it really shocked me. So consistent communication. I do one-on-ones with every single person of my leadership team every single week. Well, actually, my director of operations now will alternate with me on the operations one-on-ones, but every other Thursday, I do 11 calls back to back to back to back to back. It's hours long where I am doing a personal call with every single person on my leadership team. so that I can prevent this and just touch base. And they know they have time with me and I have time with them. And anything that may have fallen through the cracks, we can address. Maybe I forgot to respond to a Slack message or, this or that. We can just touch on everything. It can be a little personal, a little professional. I can build rapport. We can connect, talk about our lives, talk about things. And it's just a great way to keep that relationship fresh and groomed, and make sure that there's not just that drift happening. Because I've had that happen a couple times where suddenly, to me, I was not where I thought I was relationally with this person, and those were very painful experiences. I will strive to avoid them, and that's the purpose of these just scheduled weekly one-on-ones. You probably do that with your business partner. If you don't, you probably should start.
Nice. Well, it's been a healthy hour of conversation, I think. We'll wrap it up there. We've got a few more questions that have come through. We'll make sure to get them on the next one. Hopefully y'all enjoy this, and we will continue to go for ask for questions as we go along in the school community, on YouTube, and the podcast comments everywhere that we're out there.
Couple things I don't want to forget. One, we're launching a newsletter. Zach, do you want to speak about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think we're going to start sending out an email blast once a week with just some tips, like insights from the podcast, some of the best of. So I think that'll be a good format for people who are into that kind of thing. You can subscribe at flashquotes.com/newsletter if you want to get like a weekly update of what's going on, who we have on the pod, things we're learning, and some updates on Flash Quotes too.
And the second thing is, up to now, the Flash Quotes podcast, the guests have really just been existing Flash Quotes users, but we are wanting to expand to just be a really industry leader podcast. That means we'll bring on guests who aren't necessarily using Flash Quotes. So if you have any suggestions of people that you'd like to hear us interview in any event business industry, please, shoot us their email address, their name, their website, and we'd love to get them on and interview them, even if they're not a Flash Quotes user.
Yeah, we need an email address, or I guess we could have podcast. Hello at flashquotes.com. Just send us a note there. We'll get it. Awesome. Well, until next time.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Ciao.